Hello and welcome to Truth Without Pride. Yeah, it's been a while. The other videos, they didn't get many views. Some of them only got 13 views and 16 views and stuff like that. But I hope it went to those that were meant to receive it. But today people are not interested in truth. And today I want to discuss a couple of things. And one of them is the letter from Albert Pike to Mazzini, written in 1871, and how that correlates to today. But there's also what I want to talk about is the fire ant people that are spraying the department and the harm that it's actually doing. But you'll probably say to yourself, well, how does the fire ant thing relate to Albert Pike? Or in fact, Ellen White's book, which is a compilation of her writings, Last Day Events. Well, it certainly does. Everything does tie in. There's a lot of different dots that you've got to apply. But this letter here, Albert Pike letter to Mazzini, is written in 1871, and the Albert Pike, brilliant guy. He spoke about 12 languages. He was a military man, a lawyer, an occultist, and Freemason. Now, the occult and Freemasonry, they're all part of the Catholic Church, the same as all your secret societies. And if you want to get ahead in this world, then you really have to give your allegiance, knowingly or unknowingly, to Lucifer. And that is often through the secret societies. And we see that in music and in movies and everything like that. But Albert Pike spoke of the First World War and the Second World War, how they will start and finish through the secret societies, which is your Catholic Church. Now let me read what he wrote about the Third World War. He says that the Third World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences caused by the Agentor, or of the Illuminati, between the political Zionists and the leaders of the Islamic world. The war must be conducted in such a way that Islam, the Muslim Arabic world, and political Zionism, the state of Israel, mutually destroy each other. Well, isn't that happening now between Iran and isn't it spreading forward? Meanwhile, the other nations, US and Europe, once more divided on this issue, will be constrained to fight to the point of complete physical, moral, spiritual, and economical exhaustion. Don't you get that between Russia as well as Ukraine war? Isn't that all the money pouring in? Now, we shall unleash the nihilists and the atheists, and we shall provoke formidable social catalysm, which in all its horror will show clearly to the nations the effect of absolute atheism, origin of savagery, and of the most bloody turmoil. Then everywhere if you look at Alice Bailey, who was taught by Helena Blavatsky, Alice Bailey started what's called the Lucifer Trust, and then they changed it to Lucis Trust, and you see that with the t-shirts that have the pyramid, just like the American dollar. Now, Lucis Trust, or Lucis .org is part of the United Nations, and Alice Bailey wrote a document in the early 30s or 40s, and the United Nations have taken that agenda. So what I just wrote to you here about atheism is what we see today through her writings, and through that agenda we see multiculturalism and every religion saying, well, we have the truth. And even in Christendom, we see such a divide and such a conflict that any smart person would stand back and say, well, I don't believe in all of you. You're all a bunch of liars. You all proclaim the truth, but you're all hypocrites. And so atheism is what you breed. But this is what's designed, because 80% of people, most people, do not research. They don't study, and that's to their downfall. And that's their responsibility for themselves. They ought to study. But this is what's happening now. And we shall provoke a formidable social cataclysm, which in all its horror will show clearly to the nations the effect of absolute atheism, origin of savagery, and of the most bloody turmoil. The economies are collapsing. Then everywhere the citizens are obliged to defend themselves against the world minority of revolutionaries, which is actually your true Christians, will exterminate those destroyers of civilization, and the multitude disillusioned with Christianity, whose deistic spirits, and of course radical Muslims, whose deistic spirits will from that moment be without compass or direction, anxious for an ideal, but without knowing where to render its adoration, will receive the true light through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer, brought finally out in the public view. Well, this is forming as we speak. The manifestation will result from the general reactionary movement, which will follow the destruction of Christianity and atheism. But the Christianity that they're talking about is not a person saying that I am a Christian. That's it. A lot of people use that term loosely. So if you look at Roman Catholicism, the true Christians that they talk about are those that are the Sabbath keepers, that keep Friday sunset to Saturday sunset. So that's what it's talking about, those that keep the laws of God. And atheism, which before mentioned, is those that look at all this and they turn around and say, I want nothing to do with it. So it's pretty obvious. So both conquered and exterminated at the same time. So this is actually where we're heading, and we're very close to it. We've got wars, we've got pestilences, and things are moving forward. Now, they turned around and they said that letter, which was held in a museum, they never had it. But in this book, Daniel and Revelation, written in 1944 by Uriah Smith, I can't remember where, it's a hard book to read, but somewhere in here it mentions that letter. So there you go. Truth and lies. But for everyone out there, the Sanctuary Message, I wrote this. I wouldn't know how to get you a copy of this. But the Sanctuary Message you can get through this book here, which is Practical Lessons from the Experience of Israel for the Church of Today by F.C. Gilbert. Now that'll go through the Sanctuary Message. People ought to understand it, because that's what salvation is. If you know how to give me your address, I can send you these. And I'm happy to do so. I wrote this, it's only about 19 pages. But it talks of God's sanctuary and every article of what it means and where we're heading now. So it's up to you. But let's get on to the fire ant people. And now I've spoken to the past to the National Fire Ant Eradication Program when they first came around. And I got facts from America and everything like that, what happened in America was in order to eradicate the fire ants. They've done exactly what they're doing here in Australia, which is that spray. They say they're not spraying, but they're spreading that poison, those granules. But what it done in America was it killed the predators of the fire ants and of other insects, and it also kills the bacteria, the healthy as well as the bad bacteria in the soil, and it kills other ants and everything like that. So it basically destroys your soil, and it weakens the trees, like paperbark trees. It weakens them. I got 2 plum trees. It killed them. I've got a custard apple tree. It almost killed that. And the grass becomes weaker as well. Now, grass is the most rugged plant in the world. It can survive drought, severe drought, and I mean, we walk on it, but it comes back to life. It is very rugged, but when they spray those granules, the colour of the grass changes, especially around the root system, and when they mow it, it looks almost dead. And so it's weakened it, and unless it rains, it starts to die off very quickly, and I've seen that with my neighbours. Now, if you don't want them to spray your property, then I suggest you get things like sweet potato slips and start planting them everywhere in your yard. And so when they come, they can't spray crops. So you've got to ask yourself, well, if what they claim to be is that it's not a poison, that it's only designed to kill the fire ants, then why can't they spray the crops? Is it that if they sprayed the crops, that we were to cut it up and eat it, we would then be poisoned? Is that the possibility? Is that one of the reasons why they're not allowed to spray the crops or the roots of fruit trees? We're already headed for famine. In Queensland, 90% of the wild bees have been killed. I'm not saying through the fire ant program. I don't know. I don't know what's killed them. They'll turn around and say it's climate change, but they're the silly buggers doing all this cloud seeding. They're the one poisoning the atmosphere. You know, they're the ones that say, oh, for climate change, and they introduce these electric cars. But people that don't do the research find that, well, even if they bought the electric car, what they do is they find 7-8 years later on, their vehicle's worth nothing, no one wants to buy it, and no one can really repair them unless you go through their educational program that gives you the authority to repair them. So, but no one wants to spend that kind of money. So these cars are just stacking up. So you want to talk about climate change. Well, a petrol car will last you 30 years if you look after it, you know. But 7 years on these electric vehicles, and they got batteries that explode, no one wants to touch them. And they're tin cans, they just fall apart. There's nothing holding them together. So what you got is a lot of smoke and mirrors, a lot of lies, a lot of rubbish. So people ought to do their own research. So what happened this time was, I saw them in the area, right, and I locked up my place, and I thought, right, I'll go to Costco. I had to go to Costco for the wife. Make the wife happy. And the fire ant inspector, he sees the sign on my window that says I've gone shopping. So what does he do? He phones me up while I'm at Costco. I mean, this is the boldness that they got, right? They're indoctrinated by their department. Their department turns around and feeds them the rubbish tells them that they're doing an honourable thing and they're saving the planet and all this stuff, right? And we have the law behind you. We'll back you up. So they look for the certain personality to be their employee. They don't want people who are quickly affected by conscience or that can be reasoned by truth. What they want is someone that's in their head, I'm doing the right thing, I'm not going to listen to their rubbish, I'm just going to spray their property, I want to pay my bills, I've got kids that I've got to take to school, I've got to feed them as well and pay my mortgage. What they're not looking at is long term, they're hurting themselves. But this guy boldly, he phones me up and you know, I'm a bit shocked. I'm a true Christian, but when I get really angry I swear like a trooper, and you wouldn't think I was a true Christian, which is sad. I mean, that's my weakness, that's who I am, and I hope that God will help me control that. But you know, I definitely said to him, get off my property. And so I said to him, look, I'll be back at 2 o'clock and we can talk then. So I'll come back, and 10 past 2 they arrive. They've always got backup, you know, they've always got someone standing behind them, you know, standing behind them. One skinny little runt that you could blow over, you know. But I'm not into violence, I'm into truth. And these people are only doing their jobs. But you know, the question is, do they have eyes to see and ears to hear? And I think the answer's, to a great majority, no. But you know, so we're arguing at the front. I say, look, you killed you guys last time. You didn't spray my property, you sprayed next door, and immediately you killed my plum trees. And so they quickly start to defend. They say, oh, it doesn't kill any trees. And I says, well, look, mate. I says, are you calling me a liar? He says, no, I'm not. And I says, well, you're questioning what I'm telling you. I says, you weren't here. I says, when you guys leave the area, I says, we're the one that see the results. And we see the trees dying. We see the grass getting sick. And you know, so we see the problems that you guys create. So I says, I'm not a liar, mate, I'm telling you the truth. And I said, I contacted Senator Malcolm Roberts and they told me that this was last year. I contacted them and they told me that a guy had 10 beehives and it killed every one. They done a helicopter drop. So if it's not poison, why did it kill the hives? And of course, they in Sanford they done helicopter droppings on the riverways as well as people's homes and into their water tanks. And so the government had to clean all that out. But it killed all the fish in the riverways. Now, whenever you do a complaint against the National Fire Ant people, which I had done, what they do is they fob you off onto their scientific team. Their scientific team fob you back off to the Department of National Fire Ant Eradication Program. So all they're doing is doing that revolving door, say you talk to them, you talk to them, you talk to them, but you're getting nowhere. It's just to exhaust you. And I think the politicians use what's called the Hegelian dialectic. In other words, you get one person that seems to want to stand up for your rights, but it's only talk. And then you get the other politician that turns around and says, hey, it's a national emergency, we need, these fire ants are going to kill everything, you know, so we need to eradicate them. So I think what you got going on is a lot of bullcrap. There's a lot of lies. And as we have the 80-20 rule, people just follow. And another one is called the Ash conformity. Look that one up. That was a very interesting study, that one. And group conformity as well. So, but anyway, so after they finished spraying the neighbourhood, well, they didn't finish it. After he left, 2 days later, I'm looking on the concrete, and I see these bees just crawling on me concrete. I didn't think anything of it, you know. They didn't spray my property because it's all got crops, but I knew last time that when they first began this program, I didn't get any honey for over a year. It was probably about 18 months. I'm not sure on time, but the honey production from me bees just really stopped. And but this time around, you know, I see these bees on the ground, and I go back to my work. I carry on, and then my wife comes up and she says, "Keith," she says, "there's a lot of dead bees on the concrete." And I have looked, there's hundreds of dead bees on the concrete. Less than a week later, a couple of days later, you know. And so then I checked the hive, around the hive, and there's thousands, literally thousands of bees dead all around the hive. Now, I inspected the hive, and there was at least 30% dead, gone, you know. Now, these are only the bees that I saw. Then, because where you can't see them is in the grass on your property, and wherever else they died. Now, a week's gone, I don't have any bees flying out of my hive. It's raining, I can't inspect the hive. I'm in a catch-22. What do? We're in the middle of winter. The hive needs to be kept at a certain temperature for the young to survive. I've got ants that look like they're coming in and probably killing the rest of the live bees, and probably taking the young, you know, before they hatch, and probably stealing the honey as well. So what do? I mean, I open the hive, I'm going to cause harm. It's raining, it's middle of winter, and so I can't do anything. What do? You know, all I can hope is that God will help save this hive. But whatever God's purposes are, you know, we got to accept, whether the hive is to die or the world go into famine, so that God can bring the people back to Him with true Christianity. I do not know. I do not know what God has in mind. But what I do know is this fire ant spray program is very, very destructive. But I won't give you the guy's name. But I did contact Senator Malcolm Roberts' office for this recent kill, and of course you get ghosted. You know, they're just, yeah, we're interested, but they're full of crap, I think, anyway. So, but I did contact, who did I also contact? I contacted, who's it say here? The Department of Industries. Okay. Department of Primary Industries, right? Now, I said to them, they've killed my bees, about half of my bees are dead. And I told them the story. And she says, well, we'll refer your complaint to the National Fire Ant Eradication. And I says, well, they're biased. And I says, it's not right that they investigate themselves. Obvious, isn't it? You know, and so this is what I get. I refer to your complaint of 14th of July 2026 regarding the National Fire Ant Eradication Program. And Your feedback has been forwarded to the National Fire Ant Eradication Program. No one gives a crap. The government are full of crap, right? So for investigation and their direct response. Well, if it's been referred to, what was this? This is dated the 17th of July. I don't know what the date is now. I think it's the 20th. I haven't heard from them, and of course it's not a national emergency. They're really just poisoning the place, and of course in this letter it has what I've just told you before. But the fire ant guy that came round, he sent me a copy of what they wrote on their tablet, that the place is full of veggies and that the department won't believe what he wrote, and they'll probably want to come round and inspect. So I've got his phone number, you know. So I end up communicating to him, and I'm saying to him, look, come around, I want to show you what your granules have done to my bees, right? So then he turns around and says, I'll contact the department. An hour later he says, you should contact the bee organisation in your local area. Fobbing you off, you see. No accountability, no due diligence. And so I wrote back and I says, well, you know, it's pretty well pointless, you know, because there's no uproar from anyone. Everything is just silent. And people that do have a voice or try to speak out, it doesn't go anywhere. And so I said, look, because you're interested in people's consciences, you come around with boldness and you turn around and say that it doesn't kill the plants and it doesn't kill bees or anything like that, it doesn't kill other organisms in the soil. Well, it's a load of crap. Come around and have a look at the damage that you guys have done. And now, it's not about it's not about getting so angry that you don't communicate. Yeah, you can be angry and disappointed, but it's about saying to the person, listen, you have been indoctrinated by these people. You've been given false truths. Come around, have a look. And of course, they don't want accountability, do they? They don't want to be shown that they're wrong. And most of us, even if we believe in God and trust God, a lot of us don't want to be proved that we're wrong. It's just a human trait. But there's things deeper than this, this is destroying. This is going to create huge problems. And it's going to affect both sides of the fence. It doesn't matter who. No one's going to escape it, just like I mentioned in the Albert Pike letter. And this all comes from the Vatican. This is what the Vatican wants. You just read their Laudato Si and have a look at what they consider the common law, or the common good, I should say, and who radical Christians and who the radicals are, who the heretics are. And you'll find that the heretics are the true Sabbath keepers and radical Muslim. So they're the ones behind it all, and they're manoeuvring the people for Lucifer to appear as Christ. And that's what's happening. You read that from 1871 of Albert Pike. You know, and it's definitely in the occult world. And we're moving in that direction, whether you believe it or not. They're demoralising the people. They're taking their will away. They're making them reliant upon the government. And this fire ant program is just one of their methods. It's quite obvious. It weakens that granules, that poison stays in the soil. It can't be washed out. So you go and try and plant something, will it survive? Will it give you its fruit? If it's not watered correctly, will it die quickly? What about the good bacteria in the soil? Does that have a chance to grow? But like I said, in America, you know, by the time they'd finished poisoning everything, the predators, which is the fire ants and other baddies, they take over and they squash all your good insects, and that'll happen here. But it's as a result of their own doing. But we are the ones that will suffer. So I have just written a letter to the National Environment Protection Agency. And I mentioned the same thing, exactly the same thing. This letter was dated 14th of July. And I gave the fire ant person's phone number and name. And of course I've got a copy of all the text messages that went backwards and forwards. But and I mentioned the statistics that I've just mentioned to you. But I also put, I certainly do not believe my complaint will have any legs to it. Because if the department was doing that which is right, it would have investigated it earlier and stopped it. And this is true. I mean, if the whole of the government was not conspiracy involved, then certainly you would think the National Environment Protection Agency would be on top of this. Then I wrote to the newspapers, right, a few of them, one on the Gold Coast and I think Brisbane, and they don't want to know, do they? I mean, what is really going on? Why is there no real investigations going on? Why isn't it hitting the news? And why isn't it on all your news programs? Why is it so silent? Well, look at their logos. Look at their logos. They're pagan logos. Simple as that. I mean, the logo speaks 1,000 words, doesn't it? It tells you who's really controlling it. Just look at logos, look at symbols, and you'll see the sun, you see the crescent moon, and a lot of symbols. A lot of people don't see these things. So that's my story. I think they've completely killed all my bees, and but they ain't coming on this property to spray because I got crops. But eventually I'm going to lose this battle anyway. And you know, truth doesn't need a defender, but sometimes it needs someone to argue for it. So you people out there, if you've got a voice, put it on YouTube. Create a problem for these people. Expose them. Show them the damage that they've done. And but be honest, you know, and there's no need for name calling or pointing the workers out. There's no need for that. You know, they're just doing what they think is right. It's the powers that be, the elected officials, which is a load of rubbish they're put in there. We think it's democratic society. Think again. Anyway, that's me. Wishing you well. So do your own study. But oh, hang on, that ain't me. Let me show you the dead from the bees. Right? Let's see if we can see them. It's been raining, so here we go. I'm gonna flip this. All right. Have a look here. Right now, it's been raining, and these have been here for a few days. Right? But if you notice, none of the ants want them. Right, look, this was at the front of the hive when I first took it away. This is only a sample, and I sent this picture to the fire ant people. Now, as we come to the hive, the reason why I put this up is they fly low, so I don't want to get stung. There's a smell of death here, Have a look at this. This is the back of the hive. This is the side. Look at this. This is the front. Jeez, it smells like rotten honey. It's terrible. Look at that. Look at all the dead. Look, no bees. There's a couple of sick bees sitting there, right? But look at the death. Look at the death of it all. It's disgusting. And yet they won't come around. So I don't lie. But these people, these fire ant people, get them off your property. Tell them plant vegetables. Tell them to go away. Alright, see you. Bye bye.